Shiny Side Out with Dave and Mecky. So I hope you have your tinfoil hat all made and cinched down tight over your ears. So take it away, Dave and Mecky.
Welcome to Shiny Side Out with Dave.
And Mecky.
Broadcasting from Australia for Revolution. Oh, it got reverb on today. Broadcasting from Australia for Revolution Radio on revolution.radio. Who knew? Where it's more than just radio, so jump into the chat room if you can. This is show number 318. It's on air, online, and on your smart device, so grab an app to listen anywhere or listen at home on a Grace Tabletop digital radio. If you miss Solaris' show, who's got a fill-in at the moment, she has a few days off, please tell me what they were talking about, because I missed it entirely. I was working on my car. So, sorry, Solaris, or the fill-in, probably Dr. Rowe, I'm not sure. But anyway, if you don't know who we're talking about every time we talk about Solaris, or in fact you just like to catch up in our back catalogue as well, or any of the hosts on Revolution Radio, it only costs $5.95 a month to get access to the Freedom Slips archives. Now, this isn't like, subscribing to a single podcast or something like that. You've got all of it. It's all there, the entire station's archives. So think about your access. Your access gets you access to all the shows. And then you'll know what we mean when we say Solaris has had an awesome show. Now, Mecky and I, we live in Australia. And here, like all around the world, I suggest that you do the same. And that is, we acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land. Where I live, it's the Dark and Young people, and where Mecky lives, it's the... Mecky? Earth to Mecky? The Karuk people?
Karuk people.
There we go. And we pay respects to elders, past, present, and future. Your audio's coming and going, Mecky. And let us remember that beneath our houses, our concrete, the roads that we've built, and all the buildings and lands, are lands which have had stories passed down for 240,000 generations of people. Because the stories they're telling now are the same stories about the same land that we're on now, and we should respect that. Because, one day, if we're bombed back to the Stone Age, see where I'm going with this? We're going to have to remember those stories too. We're going to have to remember the stories to pass them down, because as Elon Musk says, his goal is to reduce the time that we spend in the Dark Ages after the next cataclysm. Because that's the bad part. That's the hardest part to get out of. So if we can get out of that real quick, that'd be awesome. So remember, rotational crop farming. Remember, I've got to remember the cell phone. No, I don't. What else do I have to remember? Mecky, entanglement. How can you write it down on a piece of stone in pictorial form, so anyone in any language can recognize what it means? Good luck with that.
Well, easy. No. Look, let's be clear. All that knowledge is out the window. Gone. And I don't care who survives. I don't care where they are. It'll be if there were survivors. Let's say it's a small fraction of the people today. Mm-hmm. As soon as the infrastructure, even if they're the scientists and the smartest people alive today, even if those are the survivors, which they probably won't be, but let's say they are. Even if they are, within 2 or 3 generations, all advanced knowledge will be gone, because we'll be worried about how to make, hardened spear tips and how to open coconuts and gut fish and that kind of stuff. So whoever lives through whatever comes immediately after the end, however the end comes, horrible. Okay, that's going to be a horrible time. 2, 3, 4 generations after that, things will start improving. 5, 10, 20 generations, this time will become a legend and myth. 100 generations down the track, not much of it will remember. They'll be like, "Wow, they used to be able to speak across long distances and fly through the air." That sounds like a fairy tale.
Rubbish.
That's clearly not. How can anything heavier than air fly? That's just silly. We used to walk on the moon.
Yeah,
sure
once we throw this rock, I bet it falls back down again. Hey,
yes.
We got the
on
first
your
Newton. Yeah, on someone else's head. You got Newton.
But see, that's
I can
the kicker, though,
calculate that
Dave.
distance.
You can, right? Look, that's the kicker, right? This is just the problem that we'll face, and every time we have faced this, it has always been a start from scratch. And every advancement, any high technology, anything that we really did well, and we did do things. We did build the pyramids, okay, and we did many other things, most of which are only remembered in fairy tales these days.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what happens. That's what happens. If you lose any context, okay, look, even within a very simple look, the technology we have today, most of us don't understand it. Okay, that's just full stop. That's just how it works. You could try going back to go back 100 years and explain someone how a cell phone works. Go back 1,000 years, explain someone how heavier than air travel works. Go back 2,000 years and explain how a submarine works. Yeah,
Actually,
and make
I'm going to add to that. You can even draw a picture of it. Like a light bulb,
Yes,
someone holding a big light bulb with wires connected into a battery, people still won't get it.
No, they can't. It is simply not within their scope of experiences. It's not something. I mean, could they learn? Of course. I mean, we all did. But if you come across someone that's middle-aged, set in his ways or her ways, very tough. Very tough. If you get children, well, children will believe pretty much anything, right? If you can back it with fact, okay, great.
There's proof there already. Yeah.
Right. Fine. But that's the thing, though, and we all think, no, oh yeah, that would be horrible. Well, it has already happened many times. Yeah, we had to show about UPARTS. I actually watched it recently on YouTube. It's really good. It's a really good show, and 800 odd people agree with that, I guess, because they watched it. But it's really good because it shows you all the things that don't fit, and all the explanations as to how they could have come to be where they were found, and how spurious they are, and well, frankly, not quite believable in my opinion. So you have all the information at your fingertips. I urge you to go and have a look, Dave. That's what I think we should do. Learn as much as we can.
We do need to learn as much as we can. Mackie, I was going to ask you how your week was, and I'm still going to do that in a minute.
Hot. Yes, you ask me later.
Yesterday it was 28 degrees. Before that it was like 35 degrees. This is April. I saw a very funny meme, and I'm going to repeat it again because it's still funny. It was outside a restaurant, drawn in chalk, but it came from a Facebook meme that is spread around Australia. And that is, autumn loading, like a temperature bar that you would see, installing software. And it's just got to like 18% and failed. That is really funny to me. Mm-hmm. And that's what it felt like. We'd almost got cold, and then now it's back to summer. It's actually hotter than the average summer temperature, which is only 26 degrees. And today was still hotter than that. We've got bushfires now. We've got bushfires, houses lost again. A military base is gone. Yeah. Yeah,
I know. Holsworthy. That's actually a pretty big base. But anyway, yeah.
Yeah, it's actually about the third of the Sydney Basin, but unpopulated because of government-owned military base, and it's huge, absolutely ginormous. But it's the terrain is so terrible. It would be brilliant to build on, to sell to developers, but has unexploded ordnances all through it anyway. But that's not my point. This week has been pretty tough. It's tough from the Syrians' point of view, pretty tough from the Assad government. I'm not going to call it a regime. Well, it's not my place to call his governance of his country a regime. Yeah, America doesn't like it. France, the UK don't like it. But this is something else. Okay, so we have a UN Security Council. In the past, I've called them toothless, and yes, they are. There is, like an old lion who's got no teeth. It makes lots of roaring sounds and does nothing. can't kill anything and can't supply sustenance to the pack or the, but that's pretty much what it is. So the Syrian air defense systems apparently intercepted a majority, up to 80, between 70 and 80 cruise missiles and Tomahawk missiles that were launched, and they launched around about 103 of them, depending on who you're listening to. And they were launched by the Allies, so that's France, UK, and the US. Now, according to the latest data from the Russian MOD, this is what I'm saying, is they were successfully able to prevent the majority of those come inbound. And what they didn't stop were being launched at facilities that were in the middle of nowhere when you have a look at the map. So the Russians had been protecting the people with their anti-missile defense system. You have to remember that. That's number one to remember. So the Russians' defense system worked the way it should have, which is great. However, I've got something else to say about the UN. Don't hate me, Meki. Okay? Almost all of the countries in the UN... Hate is going to hate. Fish has got to swim. Birds got to eat. All of the countries... Your girls aren't old enough for that one yet. All of the countries in the UN Security Council condemned the UK, USA and France for acting before the proof of the alleged chemical attack has come to light. Before the investigation even. Before it were to be tabled at the UNSC, that's the UN, United Nations Security Council, where action would be decided upon and voted upon. Do you know what I mean? So, the position of condemnation of the other member countries is so strong. And I watched APAC, I watched the entire 7 hours of the meeting or whatever it was. Crazy, right? Last night. And those member countries that showed that they were disappointed in the 3 countries of the UN who misbehaved, let's call it that. Those other countries feel so disappointed at the council itself for not holding the coalition in contempt for acting without permission or mandate. That's what I found. I suppose it could be best put that you yourself are a member of a protectionist council to maintain stability. When a few members of the gang, a few members gang up on someone without proof, and that's of the same council members. When it is part of your membership to adhere to the decisions, resolutions, and of the council, it would make me very nervous that I joined a council for protection, then only to find out there isn't any. Do you get what I mean now? About the nervousness of those members of the UN Security Council who went, but they're just bombing people. We didn't even say they could. No proof has been tabled, and every single other party said that. We can't prove there was any gas, chlorine, far out. I mean, you can just open up chlorine and spray it on people, right? There's no footage. In fact, I heard from the actual hospital in a cross. It didn't last long, but it was a cross to the hospital. The only hospital in Syria, in that area where the attack was meant to have taken place. And they said nobody was admitted to the hospital. But hang on, but you're the only hospital within, like, Kui, right? Yeah, no one came in. So, doesn't that ring bells? It just appears as fake as the others. And I was watching Fox News, and there was this guy that went on, and they had a little panel going, and this other guy was in another studio somewhere, apparently. He could have been in the same studio in a different booth, but whatever. And they had him in, and he started on a tangent, and then he got sort of aggravated about it. Now, this was talking about the Syria chemical attack, alleged chemical attack, attack, and he was stating how the other ones were so terrible. But he missed out the bit of the Fox News part where the guy said, well, you know what? If this one turns out to be true, then it'll be the first, says this other guy. Because he said, I've seen all the documentation and none of it was proved to have been Assad in the past. Okay, so they get this guy on who's so staunch Assad has to be, assassinated because he's a killer. Yeah, okay. Oh, why? Because he's used chemical weapons. And one of the panelists says, look, in fact, it's not true. There's been no proof that he's orchestrated any of it. If there were any attacks at all. Because I've got to put this one forward, Mecki, and I hope you're going to agree with me. If Trump says they're pulling their troops out of Syria, it's done, right? Russia was the only country invited to assist the Assad government against the rebels. But then you've got to say, who are the rebels? Well, allegedly, they were US-trained, weaponized in Turkey or something and thrown across the border to try and topple the government. Didn't work, and it's been a problem ever since, but when you look at Syria, it's pretty much devastated. There isn't much left. So, they got this guy, they took him off air. They took the guy off air from this panel, the second guy, the new guy that came in and was trying to put I suppose, change the impression, and he was toting the government's flag, I'm saying all the right words, aren't I? Oh, terrible chemical attack. We should take out the Assad. And they took him off air because he was getting angry with everyone. Then they brought him back and he was all smiles and happy. And then he started on his tirade again and they pulled him. That's on Fox. And I couldn't believe what I was watching. So the message from all the mainstream media is consistent, and they've all agreed that the chemical attack in Syria was an Assad government thing, and it was a mix of sarin gas and chlorine. But there was no evidence of that anywhere. There's certainly no footage, and any footage you might see is not from that alleged event anyway. And now, this week, as in a segue to chemical attacks, that Skripal and his daughter have been released, and they've found BT, which is a UK chemical from a chemical plant that is a chemical attack agent. A what? British made? Aha! The plot thickens. So, I suppose in closing, I'm waiting now for possible retaliation from Russia, if that's ever going to happen. I believe, from what I've heard so far, is that America called Russia, said, hey, what targets can we blow up there that make us look like we're not losing face? Right? We can still be as angry as we want. We'll only just do the one thing and then it's all going to go away, right? How about that? And they're going, oh, there's 3 buildings out here, who cares, right? Or that was where the Americans had their chemical agent mixed up into a batch and they destroyed the evidence. There's a lot of conspiracy people out there, and you can take all of my ideas and run with them as much as you like. I'm just saying, it's all very unclear. And I don't know why the UN hasn't said, hey, you UK, France, and USA, what on earth are you doing? What on earth? Because no one's provided any proof to anyone. No one. That anything happened at all. Oh, we get to launch some more missiles and military industrial complex gets to sell us some new ones because we used up some old ones. I don't know. What do you guys think? Mecki, what about you?
Look, it's an interesting situation, and I need to connect a few different things here. Specifically, the attack in Great Britain on the ex-spy and and the chemical attack. So I watched the press conference last night with the general in charge, I forget his name, and there was a lady there as well. I think she was the press secretary. They were broadcasting from a military base, not from the White House. In fact, I think it was in Virginia, Arlington. That's it. They were broadcasting from Arlington Air Force Base. It was very interesting. He was very confident, and he didn't like too many dissenting questions. He was quite arrogant, the general that is. And the lady just completely didn't answer any questions around proof, because there was like probably 10 questions around the proof.
Yeah.
So proof. Yeah, I can't share it with you, but there's plenty of proof. But I can't share it with you. It's reminiscent of the invasion of Iraq back when the famed weapons of mass destruction were found, and they're moving around, and they're here and they're there, and then they're actually nowhere. Interestingly enough, right now we've got the chemical weapons inspectors. I forget the acronym, but they're in Syria right now inspecting sites and so forth. And the strike happened while they're in the country. So they're not. So the question was also, why didn't you wait till they finished their work? Oh, because they were denied access to certain sites. Therefore, clearly we should bomb those sites. Look, yeah, sure. Was there a chemical attack? Has Assad used chemicals on his own people? The answer is yes, he has. Absolutely. Right? Is he the only one to have done that? No, he's not. Did he do it this time? Well, that's really irrelevant. And I'll tell you why. People are being bombed every day in that area, and Assad is dropping those bombs every day. And then, that's just, I guess, what happens. Everybody gets outraged when you use chemicals, right? Hundreds of people are being killed in these strikes, and thousands, in fact, have been killed over the last few weeks and months in regular bombing raids. Okay, air fuel bombs. They have barrel bombs. Man, these are weapons of mass destruction, if you want to call it that, right? But all of a sudden, there's a chemical attack. Oh, chemical attack! Oh no, 70 people died in a chemical attack. If it's true, it's horrific, but it's by no means the only horrific thing. It's just something people can hang a hat on. Oh, chemical attack! That's unthinkable, because bombs are okay. You see, bombing
Apparently.
people, that's okay. If you use chemicals, that's not. Okay, sure. And then there's the attack in Great Britain. When it first happened, I thought to myself, why? Why now? Why him? And why with something that would obviously be traced back to the Russians? It made no sense to me. Why would you even care if this guy lives or dies, or his daughter for that matter? Why assassinate him now? What's the point? Yeah, I keep tabs on him, sure. Why wouldn't you? I mean, if I was running a country and had people that used to be spies in other countries now, and I keep tabs on them just to make sure that I'm ahead of everything that's going on. But why would I kill that guy? I don't get it. I mean, if it's a political opponent like the Ukrainian, opposition leader, sure, that makes sense. But this dude, who cares? Right? So okay, but let's say that I did do it, and then I'm stupid enough to use my own chemical weapons to do so, like a nerve agent, toxin. Again, wouldn't I do something else? I mean, surely I'm smart enough to have to cut his brake line, to have him run over by a bus, for crying out loud. I mean, it's not that hard to kill someone if you really want to kill him. Why go through all the pain and the rigor and the danger to yourself of deploying a nerve agent? Okay, there's no there's no actually not so much an antidote. I mean, you can't actually take something then be immune to it. There's still be an effect on your nervous system, right? So why choose this most convoluted of assassination methods available?
What happened
Because
to
the thing
umbrellas?
is
Poison tip umbrellas.
Well, there you go. But the thing is this: if you wanted to be surreptitious, if you wanted to be obscure and unsuspected, then you need to choose a method of assassination that reflects that. If you use a nerve toxin,
Bingo.
that will be detected. But that's just, oh no, he died of natural causes by a nerve toxin. Oh, well, easy case for the coroner. So look, I'm not saying this or I'm not saying that. All I'm saying is, guys, think about it, okay? Think about it. And all of a sudden,
I was just going to say, Mickey, just imagine if he had his snuff in a snuff tin, and next to it on the shelf where he would normally put it, he would accidentally put it this day next to his nerve agent tin. And he's just said to his daughter, like, "Hey, why don't you just grab my snuff and we'll go out?" Yeah, okay. He picked it up. Maybe it was his own stuff that he accidentally,
well,
came
apparently
in contact with. Who knows, right?
Yeah, no, probably not, because the most highly concentrated traces of this agent were found on his doorknob. They were found on his doorknob.
Wow.
Okay, so they put it on the doorknob. Yeah, no, look, whatever. So there's that, and then there's the chemical attack in Syria. I mean, do you guys even remember? Can you recall all the horrific things that have happened in the Middle East in the last 20 years?
Yeah.
I can't. And I studied this shit, all right? Pardon my French. But this is really getting to the point where we are now no longer able to use polite language. But the thing is this. We have a horrible situation which is not getting any better. And all of a sudden we're laser focusing in on this Syrian gas attack. And the thing is this. So the reason they did this, the reason that the US is bombing Syria. Do you know what the reason was, Dave?
Go on.
To destroy ISIS. That's what the general said. And the lady as well. To destroy ISIS. Our mission is to destroy ISIS. That's why we bombed Syria. Interestingly, though, Syria and Russia are the only ones in the region that put any meaningful resistance up to ISIS. In fact, have driven ISIS to the brink of extinction.
That's right.
It's true. Syria and Russia have to. I mean, Syria and none of the established nations in the region like ISIS, because ISIS comes in and kills them all, wants to establish its own, caliphate. And good luck to them, I say. But the point is, there was the Syrians and the Russians that actually arrested this. Now let's also make no mistake here around what is actually happening. This is a civil war in Syria. Okay. This is a civil war in Syria. There are people that are fighting the Assad regime. Hey, okay, I understand that. People have grievances. Off you go, right? And then Assad fights back, and maybe the Russians help him. It's a proxy war, yet again, between two superpowers like North Korea, like Vietnam, like Afghanistan. Right? These are all proxy wars. Still, we're in a whole new Cold War that way. Do I think anything will come of it? No. And I'll tell you why. No one has anything to gain. I don't even know why they bombed Syria. I'll be honest with you. Trump says, "I got to show some action." I guess his ratings aren't so good. Domestically, his policies maybe aren't working out like he wanted it to. He's reneging on a whole bunch of stuff. He's even thinking about coming back to the Pacific Trade Treaty thingy, right? Mm-hmm. He's even talking about that. So look. And then there's the trade war with China, which fizzled. Like there was hardly any news around that for the last couple of days.
His lawyer's office was raided by police.
His lawyer's office was raided. That's right. And he let Comey go as well, right? The FBI dude.
Mm-hmm.
So
and now Comey has a book.
He has written a book.
Yeah.
And look, and if he called Comey, I think it's priceless. I mean, we are living in America where Comey describes Trump as a mafia boss, and Trump comes right back and twitters at him that untruthful slimeball. His words, untruthful slimeball.
Yeah.
Not lying slimeball, untruthful. Which is sort of like fake news. But it's astounding. I mean, I cannot recall, and I'm old, ever for a politician that has risen that high. Mm-hmm. To well, first of all, Twitter, and Twitter like that. There's nothing statesman-like about it. I mean, he's angry. Well, I get that. But guess what? As the president of the United States, you got to control your temper a little better. And you got to choose your words more wisely. Maybe have someone else speak them for you. On the other hand of the coin, though, flip. He is probably the most accessible president ever. Because you know his every thought. Okay, so whatever comes to his mind, he'll Twitter.
Good,
whatever
bad,
bothers
or
him, he'll
indifferent.
It'll tweet. Look, and that I actually like. I'll be honest with you, Dave. I like that, and I'll tell you why. Because before it was all a bit nebulous, and there was a fucking war, and you didn't really know. You got official statements. You don't have to wait for any official statements. He'll tweet right at you. Okay, he'll tweet it all out there. This bomb, and look, if we now have the technology, to make direct and real democracy a thing. It can be a thing. We can actually now all vote on something, and if you use the blockchain technology, it's actually well, as safe as we can make it. It's pretty hacker proof. Not completely, but nothing ever is. But with the technology, we can all have a vote. We can all have a vote. We can vote on things, on the issue, on anything, like the Swiss do. The technology exists to do that for every tiny little thing, for every bill, for every law, for every statute, right? We can actually do that. And having a president like that, like that tweets everything, that's helpful in the decision-making process. Love him or lump him, doesn't matter, but you know exactly where you are with him, right? Which is in complete confusion. You don't know what's going to happen next. Okay. Before you could say, oh, that's going to happen, maybe this, maybe that. Now you're going, oh, I have no idea, but I know for sure that I have no idea. I know this for sure. Okay. So, Dave, look.
And I've said it before. I've said it before. I don't think Russia's the enemy. I really don't.
Look, that
No,
but this old view of enemies, that's dead. We're living in a corporate world. There are no enemies. The enemy is bankruptcy and not making enough profit. And he's the best president. In fact, both him and Putin are the best presidents. In fact, the Chinese, I forget his name. Anyway.
He who will be in forever.
Forever. They're all businessmen. Yeah. They all understand business realities. They're the perfect leaders for this era. I mean, Putin is not poor. Trump, well, we don't really know because we haven't seen his tax returns,
but he's
not poor. No, the Chinese leader is not poor either. None of these people are poor. They are the perfect leaders for this new era of the corporate state.
Oh, you said that correctly.
Oh, yeah.
It's almost a new world order of business-run countries.
Mm-hmm.
Is it not?
Completely.
You've got to run.
Think about it.
This has been the big gap. The big gap between the chasm between running a country into a deficit that's just imperceivably large, and because you can't do that with a company. Because just imagine how fantastic a company would be back if they had endless money to pay for whatever they wanted, right? Well, that'd be awesome. Yeah,
I get a pay rise every week. No, that'd be brilliant. Look, but that's the thing. I mean, yeah, that's right. So look. None of the corporations that exist today have any loyalty to any of the countries they might have originated.
No, that's right.
There's labor arbitrage, which means all the labor went to wherever it's cheapest. That's sort of on the way out. It's on the way out because we no longer need labor for a lot of jobs that used to require human intervention. You now have, I don't know, either scripts or physical robots or something that replaces the human in the equation, and that's a lot cheaper in the long term. A lot safer, a lot more predictable. Yeah. So as a company owner, you're thinking, hey, this is brilliant. No more people. Sweet. The miners, the global miners. I'm talking about the BHPs, the Rio Tintos, all those. You probably heard about them. They've been working on this for decades. They want, because the thing is this: they've got mine sites and they're dangerous. There's explosive and digging and things. Go wrong.
Collapses.
Yeah, and if you got people on site, and especially if it's a mining operation in a Western country, like first world country, and even now, but even less developed nations now catching up, your mine will be shut down because there'll be investigation. Somebody died, the mine is shut down for a week, a month, whatever. You lose hundreds of millions of dollars, right? You have no people on site, nobody will get killed. Sweet. That's awesome. Everything. In fact, these mines exist now. They're completely autonomous mines. Self-driving trucks, diggers. There's very little human intervention now. And that's a model for the future, because what do you find when something goes wrong? For the most part, not exclusively, but for the most part, it's human error. Oh, how do we eliminate human error? You take the human out of the equation. That's what you do. You robotize this stuff, and I've been reading up on robotics recently, both for personal interest and for work. It's astounding what we can do these days with robots, and you might have seen this one guy. It's called I think it's called Abyss Industries or something crazy like that. It's a funny name like that, and they make dolls, life-sized, lifelike, fully functional, female dolls.
I get your drift.
Right? And they can now have a conversation with you. And they also have a mood detector. So if you treat them badly, talk badly to them all the time, they're in a bad mood. Okay? So you have these dolls, which are usually exclusively bought by men, I guess, but and all of a sudden you give them a personality. And I tell you now, if you've seen the TV show Westworld, that's the very first step in that direction. And if it's, I mean, it's fairly sophisticated, I gotta tell you, from what I've seen. And if this is the first iteration, okay, and I can only fear in my worst nightmares.
If Google buys that company, it'll be 18 months, and we won't be able to tell whether it's human or android.
You're completely correct, and then it'll just keep going from there. The augmented human, the modified. Well, where does one begin and the other end is the question, right? I mean, if you're born or made, what's the difference? So it's going to be it's going to be interesting, and I always knew it would be that industry that would drive it first, because that's the internet too. Because we all know this, right? There's this wonderful show. I think it was Avenue Q. It's like
Avenue Q,
satire.
Yeah,
satire of Sesame Street.
Satire. Yeah.
Yeah. Bingo! Like I watched it in Sydney. It was a fantastic. So it's a live show on the stage, and it's puppets. Yes, like the Muppets. And there was this wonderful song which kept interrupting all the time, and as other things went on. The window would open.
The theme of the show all the time. Yeah.
Yeah. It would just interrupt whatever was going on, and there was the window would open, and this puppet would say, "Internet is for porn. Internet is for porn." That's exactly. And in fact, probably the most usage the internet gets, apart from illegally downloaded movies, is probably in the pornographic industry. That's second. That's a close second. But that's still what it is, right?
You're absolutely right, Mackie, because every single new technology that has come along, from the first camera taking the first still image, was immediately adopted for that one reason. Absolutely. Even VR. VR has gone down. Of course, that's what I read on the internet. And it seems as though they're right onto that new technology. And far out, Mickey, you're right. Taking the live doll experience, I suppose, to where it's ultimately going to go. I mean, having a conversation, that's a whole new step. That's the Westworld step. Isn't it?
Yeah.
And mood detection.
But it is. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, like you said, though, I agree. Not too long, if serious money is pumped into this, not too long from now, you and me and our esteemed listeners will not be able to tell the difference in the street unless we actually dissect the cyborg or whatever it might be called going forward, right? But one other thing I wanted to mention was, and I hate to say it, because the weather is so boring. To put it in perspective, Dave said it was hot here, so that is correct. We are now in what is called autumn or fall for our American listeners. And we are 10 degrees centigrade higher on average than we were last year, or ever, for that matter. In fact, this is the hottest April on record ever. Not for the last 100 years, but ever since records started. It's the hottest April. And they're predicting it'll stay hot until May. Now, on Thursday night, which is only a few nights ago, I had I had dinner in the city, in Sydney. And, I want to say it was about 6:30, 7 o'clock. And it was like Singapore. I thought I was equatorial. It was hot. It was actually hot outside. I took my jacket off because it was hot. So we went to dinner, which was quite nice, Korean place, blah, blah. And then we finished on, I want to say 9-ish, just before 9. And I went to my car, to the car park. And it was still hot. I was driving home, which is about a half hour, 40-minute drive. As I was driving, the outside temperature was still 30 degrees. It was still 30 degrees as I was driving. The window was down, had air conditioning on as well, and I was driving. So and I did feel, because in sort of the central Sydney area, near the cinemas, George Street, that's more and more like Chinatown. So Chinatown is sort of spreading out. So I really felt like I was in maybe Bangkok or Singapore or some place like that, because the smells, from the restaurants, beautiful, all the Asian cooking smells, and then the heat and there was a bit of a breeze, which was it was a very pleasant evening, right? I like this kind of weather, but I want to tell you, I've never ever experienced it. I thought I'm still in the middle of summer. It was so hot, my washing dried within 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Because there was a wind and it was hot, and the washing, and this is like thick towels and whatnot. So just to all the climate change deniers out there, come to the mythical and fake continent of Australia, and you can observe our non-existent fake weather, which is not changing because there is no weather on a continent that doesn't exist because the Earth is flat. That's right. If you keep sailing down here, you're gonna fall off the edge and into the abyss because we're all fake. No, none of this is fake. All of it is real. Okay, it's happening. This bushfire Dave just mentioned, it's unheard of in April. We've never had a bushfire like that in April.
No, and there's
it's horrific.
400 firefighters trying to battle this out of control blaze, and it's 2,300 acres or something. There was another one at Brooklyn yesterday, which had burnt 1,700 acres. And it was still out of control at that point, but they were letting it go because it's safer if there's no one in danger, no buildings or people in danger, then just let it run. Let it run its course.
Yeah, yep.
All right. But what happened yesterday, because the wind change, you see, if a blaze breaks out, it doesn't go in every direction. It goes along with the wind. And so if the wind is pushing it in one direction, right? So I don't care which direction you want to imagine in your head, but think about it. You don't have a very wide fire, but you have a very long fire, and it keeps going long ways down the direction of the wind. When the wind changes 90 degrees, now you've got an amazingly large fire, where the fire front might have been 100 yards. Now it's like, I'll do it in miles, so like an 8 or 20 mile front now, which becomes impossible only because the wind turned. So, and the terrain isn't very good, and so you can't put anyone anywhere, and it's explosive kind of gum tree oils, so just good luck. They warned people yesterday to stay in your home, not evacuate, because the only evacuation road was through the bushfire. So they had to just let it run. And yesterday this morning I saw a vision of people on the train going through the bushfire. So the train was going along, and the bushfire was coming up to the rail. But the engine driver, the train driver, couldn't pull the train up in time. Otherwise, if he did, it would have been right there in the middle of the fire. So he just kept the gas on and just cruised through it. But at that point, flames are licking over it. Oh my goodness me, So yeah, it's pretty drastic. But I had one more thing to talk about, and this is for anyone out there who uses Facebook and understands that any photo of you take of anybody at all will, if the settings are correct, be able to identify them using face recognition. And you could go to the settings part of your Facebook logon and request an entire dump of all of the data they've got on you. And I did my one because I was curious. But what's missing in Australia, Meki, from our data dumps is the personality traits that they've collected upon you. It's not available in this country. So do it in your country, wherever you are, to discover what they think about you. How do they determine your personality? Whether you're depressive or, I'm not qualified to mention them all, but you'd think about it. But I just want to say, from face recognition, something really interesting happened in China. So if you don't know, China has 170 million CCTV cameras, and they're all hooked up together. They're all hooked up to the same face recognition system. They've taken it further than anyone else on the planet. Let's put it that way. There was a concert on, and there was 60,000 people at the concert. Now, their known perp, pardon me, a person of interest, attended that concert and had to drive like 90 kilometers, pick up his girlfriend, and then attend the concert. And as soon as he was in the middle of all of the people at the concert, police came and nabbed him. And he's the man arrested for economic crimes was shocked he was caught.
Yep.
Because they had cameras looking at the audience, and it identified him as the perpetrator of a crime. So they just came in. I mean, that's almost, what's that movie with Tom Cruise?
Minority Report.
There you go. They found it. Now, he was so surprised that he was at a concert with 60,000 people and they just came and arrested him. Like he was the only person standing in the field, if you know what I mean. But he was tightly packed. That's crazy. I mean, that's the future, isn't it?
Yes.
That's what we're looking at. Did you know that you could be caught facial recognition in the background of an image on Facebook? On Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
And be found by the police. They've only got to know who you are once, and it turns out that they can do that. So it's a part of a data collection, and this back end that the protection authorities have into Facebook, into social media, into all of these things. So, and it's come out this week. I love the questions that he was asked during the week in the interrogations. And they gave an example of WhatsApp. He said, if I send a message in WhatsApp, will you use that message detail, the data in there to alter the advertising that I'm seeing? And he says, no, that's encrypted. All right. Would you like it? Oh, he said, that's right. He says to Zuckerberg, who'd you have lunch with this week? And he's under oath, right? He said, I prefer not to say. All right. Do you have any photographs from this week? And he goes, yeah. Who are they of? Who'd you spend time with? Mm-hmm. And he says, I prefer not to say. I don't, senator, I'd prefer that I didn't divulge those persons. He said, but that's what you're allowing everyone else to divulge without their knowledge. Mm-hmm. All of their comments, all of their suggestions, all of their discussions are all out there. I mean, he goes, yeah. And he goes, look, you've got a massive platform and it's free, right? Yeah, but we survive on advertising.
That's true.
And we know, Mekki, that you are the product. It's all about you.
That's right.
So it's no surprise to Mekki and I that it's doing all this stuff. But I think this is the big surprise for everyone else.
Yeah, look, but you have to understand, he also works with the with the American intelligence community. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind at all, right? And by the way, just an update on the firefight. It's actually 500 firefighters, 100 fire trucks, and 15 aircraft that are battling the bushfire. Right? That's massive. It's huge. Cool. Look, let me tell you one more thing about the world. Focus on what's important, all right, and just don't be distracted. Whenever there's a huge news item breaking, like we've seen this week, the Syria bombings or the Syria attack or whatever, we can't even agree on. This is the funny thing: the Russians and the Americans can't even agree on whether or not anything was hit and how many missiles made their way through. So the Americans said every single missile went through and hit everything they wanted to hit. 105 missiles. The Russians say no, 71 were shot down. Mm-hmm. So they didn't say everyone was shot down, which you could have said, but no, 71 was shot down, the others found their target. So what is true? I don't know. I just don't know. And nor do you. You don't know what's happened either, because no one is telling you the truth. Okay? Let's just be clear about that. Now, what can we take away from any of that? Well, what we can take away is that you don't know the real reasons for things happening, and unless you inform yourself, and you can't trust any news outlet because they all have an agenda. RT has an agenda, BBC has an agenda, CNN has an agenda. I don't think there are very many news outlets left in the world that do not have an agenda. Okay, lucky we have the internet. Well, lucky and not so lucky, I guess, because everybody can post anything they like on the internet. So. It's in fact,
some of the information on the internet is true.
Some of the information is true, but Dave posted a picture of a McDonald's menu from 1972, which I loved.
Yeah.
1972. I was young. I was very young. But in fact, we didn't have McDonald's in Germany. So at that point, anyway,
And we didn't
come
have it
until the
until
80s.
the 80s. Yeah, likewise.
Right. So, but this is how much things cost. A hamburger, 28 cents. A coffee,
Wow.
hold your horses, 15 cents.
Oh.
A
15
Coke,
cents.
I know a Coke, a Coca-Cola, or an Orangeade, which it was called. There were two sizes, clearly, and one was 15 cents and the other one was 20 cents.
What about a quarter pounder, Mackie?
With
70
cheese?
cents.
70
With
cents.
cheese
that's right.
was 10 cents for the slice of cheese.
Yeah, that's right. A Big Mac was 65 cents.
Wow.
So, look, yeah, I know, right? A French fries, it was 26 cents, and a large order of fries was 46 cents. Now, what happened to the world? A Big Mac now costs you in the vicinity, was it like $6 or $7 or something?
Yeah, that's right.
Some like it was a factor of 10. So 30, 40. Okay, let's go. Look, 40 odd years have passed. 45 years. Let's go. 45 years have passed, and everything has gone up by a factor of 10, except for coffee. That went up by a factor of 40. It went from 15 cents to $4.50. Okay, so you're going, but my income didn't go up by a factor of 10 or a factor of 40. No, it probably didn't. It probably didn't. So what is happening? We are creating the working poor, is what's happening.
Rich
And
get
this is what
richer.
really,
Poor get
yeah, the rich are getting much richer. The middle class is being
Never
punished
hit you
for
when you're
being
down so low.
nice song. But look, that's the truth. No, Dave, it's right. The middle class is being destroyed systematically. The underclass, the people in the street are, more and more people in the street, more and more people. And the rich are getting richer. Absolutely. In fact, they're getting even richer than that because, like I said, soon enough, they don't need people to work anymore. People? Oh, you still employ people? Oh, you
Wow,
poor...
that's so old school.
suck. It's like when the steam engine was invented, right? They had all these factories, and the cotton wool and all that, or the cotton mill, I should say. And then they all get together, all the industrialists, and go, "Oh, Bob over there, he still employs people. I have a steam engine." Yeah, but you have to have someone to shovel the coal in. Yeah, but that's just one coal shoveler. I don't need 1,000 people running my mill anymore. I got a steam engine. It's like today, they get together. Oh, look, what a Bob over there. He still has people. and then Bob goes, yeah, I need people to do my things. I got robots and scripts and software. I am so much better off. No more sick days, no holiday pay, no superannuation payouts.
Service leave, nothing.
None of that.
So remember, if you want to take your mind back to the time when a coffee was 45 cents, right, or something. Don't forget the typing pool. The printer replaced the typing pool.
Come back after the break. Donate if you can.
To express them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Hello and welcome back to Dave and Mackie's Shiny Side Out. We're going to talk about Nazi occultism today in a moment. I think we've wrapped up our analysis of current affairs. If you do like this show and other shows on Revolution Radio, revolution.radio, I still think it's cool, but I'm a simple mind. I amuse easy. And please donate. You can donate to the station. Or if you want to get something out of it, you can become a subscriber to the archives, the Freedom Slips archives. $5 a month, $5 US that is, will get you unlimited access to all of the archives, all of the shows, all of the hosts, all of the information. If you like us, you can come and check out our YouTube channel or even our webpage, which needs a lot of work. I know we said we'd do it, but we haven't. Not yet.
We're still working on it.
I know, right? Now, it is a look. Both Dave and I actually have jobs, and this goes to the donating component of this. All of the hosts have jobs, I assume. They don't get paid for doing this. It's just fun. It is really. I love it. Dave loves it, obviously. And if you want to keep the station running, please donate some money. We donate our time. We donate our time. I hope the information that we bring you is interesting. We do spend some time putting the shows together, so we're not just talking out of our rear ends when we come to you. Today's show, for example, has been going on for a couple of cycles, and altogether consists of 71 A4 pages of show notes, which will make their way to the web page soon enough. They're so long because I included a lot of German source material at the end. So if you speak or read German, for that matter, you can look at the show notes and look at things like the diary extract, for example, from Hubert Geis. You know, he was one of the people who were interviewed afterwards about Kammler. And anyway, there's a whole bunch of stuff there. Hans Kammler, yes. So let's look. But yeah, there's a lot of information we try to bring to you, and we do try to keep it on a level, meaning give you every side to an argument, because it's difficult to make up your own mind if you don't have that, right? If you give them just the one side of the truth, then it becomes very difficult to understand what is actually going on. Now, this week, we added a little recap. I think it's important that we just go to that, and I think I put the recap in the wrong place, Dave, but that you know where it is. After the recap, yeah, we're going straight to down the rabbit hole, because that's where we're at. Okay, we're going straight down the rabbit hole. But here, first of all, let's have a quick recap on where we are, where we were, and why this is important, and why this specific thing is important, and why Kammler is important, and therefore why everything associated with Kammler is equally important. So, a quick recap, and we're going to take this. I'm going to try to give you all the components that not going to break your mouth. So I'll see if we can swing it that way, Dave. According to incomplete data, at least 13,000 prisoners worked for the project. We discussed Project Riese, Project Giant, and most of them transferred from Auschwitz, the concentration camp. The documents allow the identification of 8,995 prisoners. All of them were Jews, about 70% from Hungary, the rest from Poland, Greece, Romania, Czechoslovakia, the Netherlands, Belgium, and a small percentage from Germany. They bored tunnels inside mountains, built roads and railway tracks, worked in the transportation of building materials, and so forth. Mortality was very high because of disease, malnutrition, exhaustion, dangerous underground works, and the treatment of prisoners by German guards. The deportation of 857 exhausted prisoners back to Auschwitz concentration camp, as well as 14 planned executions after failed escape attempts, are documented. The estimated total number of 5,000 victims lost their lives. That's the estimated total number of victims. 5,000. According to Albert Speer, and this is important, according to Albert Speer, Minister of Armaments and War Production for the Third Reich, so I'm quoting here, and in 1944 he, meaning Hitler, had 2 underground headquarters blasted into mountains in Silesia and Thuringia, Schlesien and Thüringen, if you're German. The project tying up hundreds of indispensable mining specialists. Let me say this again. The project tying up hundreds of indispensable mining specialists and thousands of workmen. According to point 18 of the Führer Protocol, June 20, 1944, I, being Albert Speer, reported to the Führer that at the moment a good 28,000 workers are building additions to the Führer's headquarters. According to my, again Albert Speer, memorandum of September 22nd, 1944, some 36 million marks were spent for bunkers in Rastenburg, which is the wolf's lair, Hitler's, mountainous fortress. 13 million for bunkers in Pullach, near Munich, to provide for Hitler's safety when he visited Munich, and and this is where it's important, a staggering 150 million. This is 1944 money, okay? 1944 money. This is billions by today's standard. If you do a calculation, this is worth billions. 150 million for the bunker complex called the Giant near Bad Charlottenburg. These projects required 328,000 cubic yards of reinforced concrete, including small quantities of masonry, 277,000 cubic yards of underground passages, 36 miles of roads with 6 bridges, and 62 miles of pipes. The Giant complex alone consumed more concrete than the entire population had at its disposal for air raid shelters in 1944. Dave?
According to Nicholas von Below, Hitler's adjutant, was it adjutant?
Yeah, that's it.
The plans that were kept, the plans we kept criticizing in those months in early 1944 included the construction of a huge headquarters for the Fuhrer in Silesia near Waldenburg, which was also to include Fürstenstein Castle within the estate of the von Princes. Hitler defended his orders and commanded that construction continue with the use of concentration camp prisoners managed by Speer. During the year, that was Nicholas von Below, visited this facility twice, and each time had the strong impression that I wouldn't see its completion. I tried to inspire Speer to somehow influence Hitler to give the order that the project be stopped. Speer said that was impossible. The extravagant work continued at a time when every ton of concrete and steel was so urgently needed elsewhere. Mackie.
And again, Dave, it is to me, it is astounding that such precious materials at the end of the war, and you know, this is the end of the war, everybody knew that, would be given to this project. I mean, so look, the reason this is here, the reason we put this in is to re-emphasize the immense importance this project, and therefore Kammler, had to Hitler. This project was marked kriegsentscheidend, decisive for the war effort. Last thoughts then. In July 1944, many of the firms working on Hitler's unfinished Wolf's Lair were moved to Lower Silesia to expedite the construction of Riese. So Hitler disengaged the firms working on his mountain castle or mountain fortress to work on this underground project in Silesia. Mm-hmm. Okay, the Wolf's Lair, the Wolfschanze, that was his pet project. However, unfavorable changes on the Eastern Front occurred much faster than anticipated for the Reich, and in January 1944, the Red Army rampaged across Eastern Europe on a beeline for Berlin. Bypassing the Aal Mountains, an SS unit was able to remain in Walim-Ritschka until May 1945, before which time they had bricked or obliterated all entrances into the underground fortress, and whatever was or wasn't stored there subsequently disappeared, as did the estimated 7,000 to 30,000 POWs who built the complex. So let's be clear. The POWs or prison, concentration camp inmates were never found, nor were their bodies. Yeah, that worked on that. Dave.
Yeah. So, wait, is this for the general?
Buried beneath speculation. Did you get that one?
Hang on.
Oh, maybe you didn't get that one. Okay.
Just keep going, and I'll catch you.
I am keeping. Here we go. Essentially, this is the last section dealing with this, and this is around the speculation of what this might be. Of note is Speer's calculation of 213,000 cubic meters of Riese tunnels. Today, less than 100,000 cubic meters are known, suggesting that much of the complex may remain undiscovered. Survivor accounts, the illogical arrangement of the found tunnels, and the inability to fully explore them due to the increasingly dangerous deterioration support this possibility. It is presumed that all the tunnels were to eventually have been linked, and underground narrow-gauge railways exist at some of the sites, as well as extensive plumbing that appears to lead nowhere. Due to the exodus of the German population and the military's protracted stay in the area upon the war's end, there is scant first-hand information on the site or its purpose. So we still don't know what this was all about.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Conspiracy theories abound, and many believe the Nazis proliferated the idea that Riesa was intended as a headquarters in order to hide its true intention, citing German sources as too obvious and forthcoming. Some sensationalists believe a superweapon was in development here, while others speculate that the confiscated Nazi treasure may still be buried in the Owl Mountains, including the missing Rollkrall gold and the famous Amber Room, which disappeared from St. Petersburg during the war. The mass graves of the prisoners who built the complex have never been found, and sadly, less absurd is the grisly likelihood that they were herded inside the complex before it was detonated.
I know, right? So, look, we don't know. We simply don't know. And this is where it gets interesting. Last week we started talking about the bell, the Nazi bell, the Glocke. And today we're going to go deeper into the rabbit hole. Down and down we go. So be very careful. You're now entering a tinfoil head zone, yeah?
Yeah.
Please keep your hands and head inside the vehicle at all times. And Dave, what do we say about flash photography?
Oh, there's no flash photography, I'm afraid. And you've got to
disconnect
your what's that, negative reality inverter.
That's right. And you can't have the flash photography because you might startle the quantum flux anomalies as they peek out of the quantum foam. Sure. Whatever, Mackie. Whatever you say.
I love it getting weirder by the minute. Every show. What about the personal reality? What was that one?
Yeah, please suspend your personal reality module.
There you
and
go.
let us take you. Like it's sort of like the entry or the intro to the Twilight Zone. I've been rewatching the old Twilight Zone, which I love. And there's some of the stories are just so far ahead of their time. It's not even funny. Anyway, the Nazi bell behind the myth. That's where we're at. Put simply,
Where's that?
or most simply, way down. That's page number.
I found that.
46. We're on page number 46, everybody.
Yes.
Sprinting to the end. Now, put simply, the Nazi bell was in fact a heavy particle accelerator, according to this author, used as an artificial neutron source to breed protactinium-233 from thorium-232. Protactinium would naturally degrade after 27 days into pure bomb-grade uranium-233. Uranium-233, derived from spent reactor waste, is often contaminated by uranium-232. When thorium-230 gets bombarded by a second neutron, but in a particle accelerator, this process does not have the time to occur, and thus uranium-232 contamination is as low as 1 part per million, and thus as safe to handle as weapons-grade plutonium. As safe. There's a little aside here I want to share with you. Proctanium, or protactinium-233 results from the decay of thorium-233 as part of the chain events used to produce uranium-233 by neutron irradiation of thorium-232. It is an undesired intermediate product in thorium-based nuclear reactors and is therefore removed from the active zone of the reactor during the breeding process. Analysis of the relative concentrations of various uranium, thorium, and protactinium isotopes in water and minerals is used in radiometric dating of sediments, which are up to 175,000 years old, and in modeling of various geological processes. There you go. No, we read that last week. According, Dave?
Yep, I got it now. Okay, according to speech notes recently uncovered in KGB archives, I love this part, Heisenberg advocated harvesting actinium for a nuclear weapon at the Harnack House Conference in July 1942. Later, whilst interned at Farm Hall, Cambridgeshire, after the war, Heisenberg also identified harvesting proactinium as one of the 3 methods of obtaining fissile material for a nuclear bomb. The other 2, of course, being to either enrich uranium-232 or to reprocess plutonium from spent fuel in a thermonuclear reactor. Our history books tell us all about these other 2 methods in Nazi Germany, but are strangely silent on the proactinium harvesting project. Why is that? In wartime, the wartime chairman of the AEG, Hermann Bucher, revealed to OSS informant Erwin Respondik that his company was funding development of a heavy particle accelerator for an atomic bomb project at Bissingen. The process harnessed the fluorescent quality of mercury to cause collisions between electrons and photons, which, in result, released thermal neutrons. The device was surrounded by a concave beryllium mirror to reflect neutrons back into a mass of thorium oxide placed at the core. The machine generated this X-ray plasma in orbit around an axle, which spun 2 carefully frequency-phased contra-rotating drums. That's a mouthful. Respondik also revealed to the OSS that Heisenberg worked closely with Swiss engineer Dr. Walter Dallenbach at a secret facility known as Forschungsstelle AD
Very good.
at Bissingen to develop the Nazi Bell. A report by the OSS in November 1944 cited information from an engineer named Nagelstein, who related Otto Hahn's laboratory at Tailfingen in a town close to Bissingen was using thorium to obtain uranium from an atomic bomb. Wow. Meki, how do the stories emerge? How the story
in
emerges?
August, yes, this is how it came about. You probably heard of this person. In August 1997, a Polish intelligence officer with access to Polish government documents made writer Igor Witkowski, aware of the Nazi Bell. Original documents came from war crime interrogation of former SS Lieutenant General Jakob Spornberg after the war. According to Witkowski, whilst working as a military journalist, an undisclosed member of Polish military intelligence showed him some interesting documents. Witkowski received discreet access over a period of a month, during which he transcribed files by hand. These documents have not been independently verified. However, there are several less well-detailed corroborations of the Bell project from entirely different sources. Leader for the Bell project was Professor Walter Gerlach, who was also the leader of Germany's uranium project from January 1944. It is logical to assume, therefore, that the Bell was part of Nazi Germany's atomic weapons project. Witkowski read from Sporenberg's depositions for his war crimes trial of a centrifuge device shaped like a bell with a hemispherical dome top. The outer bell was made of 3-inch thick ceramics, much like a high-voltage porcelain insulator, said to be 9 feet in diameter and 12 to 14 feet high. It consumed prodigious amounts of electrical power and glowed violet blue when operated for short periods. Inside the bell were located two contra-rotating drums. Norwegian-born physicist Rolf Widerøe wrote in his autobiography about development of the bell at Hamburg by the company CHF Müller. In his patent, his diagram showed one sphere inside another spun on a common axle. As is common with particle accelerators, a vacuum has to be created to propagate plasma inside these evacuated chambers. Then heated mercury vapor would have been bled into the cavity and then once spun up, subjected to powerful discharges of electricity to ionize the mercury. Under this influence, the mercury would fluoresce, so it would become fluorescent, and photons would collide with extremely energetic electrons, creating gamma X-rays. These X-rays in turn would stimulate the beryllium oxide in the cerium-525 to emit thermal neutrons. In turn, these thermal neutrons would be absorbed by the thorium-232, changing it into protactinium-233. Dave?
Well, Widerow called this device the Weibull Rohr, or vortex tube. Patents for variations on the same theme had been applied for in 1935 by Professor Max Steenbeck and his rival Swiss scientist Dr. Walter Dallenbach. After World War II, Steenbeck cooperated with the Soviets to replicate the Nazi bell. The Soviets named it Tokamak. The bell concept exploited an even earlier patent. In March 1934, Hungarian scientist Leo Szilard applied for a patent which was titled Improvements in or Relating to the Transmutation of Chemical Elements. His patent described how radioactive bodies are generated by bombarding suitable elements with neutrons. Szilard went on to describe such uncharged nuclei penetrate even substances containing the heavier elements without ionization loss and the cause of formation of radioactive substances. This guy's a genius. Mercury, alternate accounts say amalgams of mercury, were spun inside these drums. In likelihood, the mercury was introduced from beneath as a heated vapor. Jelly-like compounds of beryllium with thorium were located in flasks contained within the central axis. The Nazis were known to have made special paraffin from deuterium. That's heavy hydrogen, by the way. There's two neutrons. Because of its catalytic qualities in radioactive exchanges. Mercury also played a role by releasing photons into the plasma. It is this collision of energetic electrons with photons which gives off gamma radiation. And that turns everyone into the Hulk, apparently. Beryllium compounds used in the Nazi bell were called cerium-525. During World War II, Nazi scientists discovered paraffin was useful, which is just wax, by the way, as a moderator in reactor experiments. Paraffin would fit, like in oil, right, would fit the description of cerium-525 as a pinkish jelly-like substance. Pink color possibly came from the mixing of mercury. Iodide, also known as red mercury, into the compound. Thus, by implication, cerium-525 most likely contained beryllium and thorium suspended in heavy paraffin. Merky, there's your red mercury.
I know, right? I know. It's a fascinating article. Now, the location. This is where all things come together yet again, and there's a coalescence, if you will. The Nazi bell was initially housed in a basement beneath a charity hospital in Berlin, and thus the project was known as as charity Anlage, which means installation, charity installation. From November 1943, the Nazi bell was housed in an underground laboratory beneath Gandau airfield on the western outskirts of Breslau, now known as the Polish city of Wrocław. Cerium-525 compounds were supplied from a laboratory in the city of Danzig, now known as Gdynia. After operation, the spent and altered compound was reprocessed at a laboratory west of Breslau, then known as Neuberg. It was shifted from Gandau in November 1944 to Fürstenstein Castle, and later in December 1944 located inside Wenceslas mine. Following the war, Professor Manfred von Ardenne led two Soviet scientists, Nikolai Fyelov, aka N.I. Frolov, and Igor Kurchatov, to the Wenceslas mine and gave them a description of installing what he called a cyclotron in the mine. Now, in case you forgot, the Fürstenstein Castle and the Wenceslas mine is actually Project Giant, we just discussed. That's Project Riese. The mine was abandoned before the war. Above ground, there was a power station with 2 steam cooling towers. The base of these have become known by various names, such as the Henge, after Stonehenge, or the Flytrap. Bizarre claims are made by some that these are related to Nazi UFOs. It's always the bizarre claims, isn't it? Not just the claims. The claims were made. No, they're bizarre claims. Near the mine entrance, Nobel Dynamit AG operated a bullet manufacturing plant. Wenceslas mine was also known by its codename Complex Milkov. A short distance away was Ludwikowice. The area in wartime had been part of Germany's Silesia region, but after the war, most Germans were forced into East Germany and their homes were turned over to Polish refugees. In German, the village was called Ludwigsdorf. So, we've come full circle. Now we may have here an indication as to what the giant or the Project Giant was used for, at least in part. The Nazi bell, uranium, plutonium enrichment. Interesting. Now they're witnesses. These are the witnesses, Dave. A constant criticism of the Bell story is that it is a myth based entirely upon the unverified claims of Polish author Igor Witkowski. In fact, there are others who contribute small portions of the story who are also witnesses to the Bell at Ludwikowice. And I will read these names. SS Lieutenant General Jakob Sporrenberg, Police Chief, Gestapo, Lublin, which was in occupied Poland. So he was the police chief of the Geheime Staatspolizei. SS Hauptsturmführer Rudolf Schuster, from interrogation report at Berlin Document Center about evacuation of the Bell by air in 1945. Dr. Wilhelm Voss, Chief Executive of Skoda Works, Czechoslovakia, given to Tom Agustin. Soviet plasma scientist Gian Frolov in 1983 interview referred to Professor Baron Manfred von Ardenne as first-hand witness. Railway employee from Opole, Joachim Ibrom. Dr. Otto Czerny, whilst working at NASA, recounted Nazi Bell to Greg Rowe. Argentine Economic Ministry report declassified 1993 refers to Bell being unloaded in Argentina from a multi-engine German aircraft in May 1945. Dave? You might be on mute, sir. Am I still with you?
Mute button. I thought for the first time in a while, I'll mute myself while I'm not talking, and then I just forgot. Point number 2 and point number 7 line up perfectly with each other. Isn't that extraordinary? And if anyone was to doubt it, this is how you build a case, by finding little bits of information all over the place. You don't find all of it from one location usually. Otherwise, there was no point in researching it. Other individuals who may not have had first-hand witnessed the Bell device itself have also contributed to understanding the projects surrounding the Bell. Dr. Ronald Richter strove to recreate the Bell project in Argentina after the war, and dismantling of his Bell device under political pressure applied upon Argentina in 1952 grant further insights. Wow, he was asked to dismantle his project? That's crazy, isn't it? Because remember how it turned people's blood to gel or something, crystals?
That's right.
Yeah, that's how they found him. just piles and piles of people with their blood turned to crystals. It is also worth noting that Ardenne disclosed to Frolov that whilst Ardenne had installed one cyclotron-like device in the mine at... Oh, now you said Ludwikowice.
Very good.
He said there was already another one inside the mine. At Bissingen in April 1945, the French captured what appeared to have been another incomplete Bell device created by the Swiss scientist Dallenbach. when Alsos, A-L-S-O-S, reached the Austrian town of Melk, they came across another nuclear project with what was termed a transformer room. Dr. Rolf Widerow, after the war, referred to a device known as an X-ray transformer, which also appears to be the Nazi bell. At least 4 such devices may have existed, including bells at Melk, Bissingen, and Ludwigoweiser. Furthermore, a giant underground transformer room at Johnsthal may have contained yet more Nazi bell machines. The contents of Johnsthal remain classified by US authorities.
Uh-huh.
There you go, right? The Nazi bell is intimately connected with the work of Swiss plasma physicist Dallenbach's work for Forschenstelle. Dallenbach was contracted by AEG, and his laboratory was located in Bissingen in Germany, just north of Zurich. Dallenbach scrupulously avoided giving any impression that he was anything other than a neutral during the war. However, he was a fervent Nazi, and several slip-ups by Nazi officials and his own deputy revealed that he was working on an atomic bomb project vital to Germany's war effort. Dallenbach himself maintained his work was pure research, yet his time in Germany, the Nazis refused to fund any scientific work not vital to the war effort. There's a big point there too, I suppose, to be made.
Which brings us to the Charité-Anlage, or the charity installation we mentioned earlier. Numerous top-secret code names are associated with the so-called Nazi bell. The term Nazi bell, however, is just a modern affectation due to the device's resemblance to a bell. When the bell arrived in Argentina in May 1945, however, Argentine intelligence referred in a report classified until 1993, calling this device the bell, because it looked like one. By protocol of the Army Weapons Office session of the 21st of July 1942, this project was awarded the priority classification Kriegsentscheidend, which means decisive for the outcome of the war. The highest known category of secrecy and funding priority known in the Third Reich. No other known project had it. The electrical giant AEG provided the huge amounts of electrical power under the contract codename Charity-Anlage, or charity installation. The codename coexisted with Project Thor. Priority classification was invoked for the bell with the Gestapo in 1944, quoted as SS 1940. This classification was cited seeking the release of engineer Reinhard Kremer from a 2-year sentence for defeatist attitudes. We have lost the war! 2 years in jail for you! The name Charity-Anlage applied specifically to electrical engineering and manufacture of the bell itself, as well, of course, as the supply of power. Another code name associated was Der Laternenträger, lantern bearer. Now think about that. A loose metaphor for the light bearer, Lucifer, presumably refers to medical and biological experiments with radiation. It may also refer to the weaponization of nuclear material produced by the bell. Interesting, Laternenträger, because Lucifer means light bearer. Anyway, the Laternenträger research was based at Fürstenstein Castle, according to Groß-Rosen camp survivor, Professor Mieczysław Moldavia. According to Professor Mieczysław Moldavia, other researchers at Fürstenstein Castle were also investigating and testing pressure suits for a manned V-2 rocket, known as the A9/A10, part of a manned 2-stage rocket for attacking New York. Rainer Karl's book Hitler's Bombe, or Hitler's Bomb, relates that a team of physicists from Leibniz University at Gießen carried out a lot of research at Ludwigoweiser, which is where the Nazi bell was located. Sporenberg commented on various animals and personnel dying horrible deaths after exposure to the bell. He said their flesh would liquefy.
Oh my goodness.
I know, it's just horrific, isn't it? Gießen is north of Frankfurt am Main, and its research appears focused on genetics and biological research. Was this ghastly research to discover what radiation could do to Germany's enemies, Dave?
This one's interesting to me. I love this. Project Kronos. The project was also known as Kronos or Saturn, which refers to spin polarization plasma physics. Thus, it could easily be inferred that the rings of Saturn represent the plasma torus inside the bell. The bell exploited spin polarization of atoms to create a plasma. It would be entirely fitting to apply Kronos to Golak's scientific role. The final but most well-known code name was Die Glocke. Die Glocke. The meaning behind this code name or its association is entirely unclear. Scientific behind the bell.
Sorry.
Science behind the bell, Mickey.
So 1 second before you go on, so just be aware that Kronos is also the father of time.
Time, yeah. So
Just
that's
say.
why you have a chronological device. It's a time device. Isn't it, Mickey? Yes?
100%.
Yes.
That's absolutely.
Yeah, 100%. Science behind the bell.
100% correct.
No credible, satisfactory explanation of the bell's purpose has ever emerged, and indeed its very existence is still disputed. Facts would suggest, however, that the bell used it, or hitherto, barely mentioned alternate method to acquire fissile uranium for atomic weaponry. A photochemistry method mentioned in secret recorded conversations between Nazi scientists interned at Farm Hall near Cambridge after the war. At Farm Hall after the war, captured Nazi nuclear scientists repeatedly referred to obtaining fissile material from a photochemistry process. Our history books are silent on this method. As I, that's the author, hypothesized this device worked, vaporized mercury was spun in a magnetic field to provide excited electrons. Mercury is known to fluoresce easily. Under the influence of an electromagnetic field, electrons would disassociate from their atomic nuclei and would swirl around the machine, much like a donut-shaped plasma or toroid. As photons collided with free electrons, those collisions would generate X-rays. Wow. The spinning of these electrons, probably in an evacuated low-pressure chamber with small amounts of mercury vapor, would lead to faster and faster speeds. With each rotation, more and more electrons would be stripped from the mercury, perhaps causing double and triple ionization. Plasma, if you don't know, is an electrically induced state of matter beyond those which we are normally used to, like solids, liquid or gas. We have all seen plasma. It's present in lighting, so, neon lights, for instance. And I just want to say that it is the fourth state of matter.
Correct.
There's a fifth as well, which is monoatomic elements.
Yes.
Rearranged elements. So there's that many states of matter. You've got a powder, you've got a solid, liquid or gas, and you've got plasma. Mackie.
Correct. Photochemistry. During the incarceration at Farm Hall, scientists Gerlach, Diebner, and Hartek all referred to the photochemistry method for obtaining fissile uranium. Yet, historical accounts of World War II remain utterly silent on what the process was which they referred to. Whilst the science of photochemistry is understood, the role it played in Nazi science is not mentioned and remains classified. Photochemistry relies upon ionization of an intermediary element to create a plasma, in this case using mercury, as we learned earlier. X-rays would be generated from the ionized plasma. Sporenberg referred to use of beryllium oxide inside the Bell centrifuge. Beryllium is known to Beryllium is known to donate slow neutrons when bombarded by X-rays. So how is that useful? It is worth noting there are slow neutrons and fast neutrons. Fast neutrons are only useful in fission for the splitting of atoms. What it appears the Nazis were attempting to achieve was fusion, or the adding of neutrons and photons to thorium-232 to transform it into uranium-233. In fact, any cold fusion is what we all dream about, the adding of neutrons rather than the splitting. An element is defined by the number of protons in its nucleus. Normally, the number of protons and neutrons are the same. But in an isotope, the number of protons remains the same, but the number of neutrons can vary in a small percentage of atoms. This could be excess or lower numbers of neutrons. For thorium to transmit to uranium requires taking up extra protons. When protons are emitted, that is called beta radiation. Thorium has only one naturally occurring isotope. Therefore, when converted to uranium, it would be relatively free from impurity. This is another important factor for building atomic weapons, because more than 0.5% contamination renders uranium-233 impossible to use in nuclear weapons. Sporenberg mentioned cerium-525 placed at the central axis of the centrifuge. From his descriptions, we can postulate that cerium-525 was probably paraffin impregnated with beryllium oxide and thorium oxide, as we learned earlier. Sporenberg mentions red mercury, which is mercury iodide. This would have caused the pinkish hue, as we mentioned earlier as well. Paraffin works by creating a large cross-section, or target, and by slowing down fast particles. Principal scientist in charge of the Project Tor was Professor Walter Gerlach. In 1922, he became famous as an understudy to Otto Stern for the discovery of the deflection of atoms in a magnetic field known as the Stern-Gerlach effect. This was also the basis of quantum physics. Really? When Stern fled Jewish persecution, Gerlach continued research at the Goethe Institute in Frankfurt am Main. When 1933 he experimented with the fluorescence of mercury under the influence of magnetic fields. Gerlach had also worked on transmutation of elements by photochemistry. It is suggested the bell combines spin polarization with another effect. Photochemistry, pioneered in 1936 by Ronald Richter. Richter developed carbide arc plasma furnaces for a chemical plant at Eger in Czechoslovakia. When the plant switched to developing lithium batteries for U-boats or submarines, Richter discovered he could induce radiation by injecting deuterium into the lithium plasma. With photochemistry, the concept creates a dense plasma contained by powerful electric magnets to cause fluorescence in mercury. Excited mercury ions would then cause beryllium to emit slow neutrons to be captured by thorium-232, changing it to uranium-233. A variation of this method, using uranium-238, could also conceivably breed plutonium for atomic weapons without the need for a nuclear reactor. Dave?
Wow, Project Tor. Project Tor began with Here is Versuchsanstalt number 10, Wehrmacht Laboratory in January 1942. The project office was originally located at Torgau from November 1943, but the project office relocated to Neumarkt, west of Breslau, modern day. What modern day is that, Meki?
Wroclaw.
Thank you.
Wroclaw, yeah.
During the war, Torgau was a penal center where prisoners were employed in explosives manufacture. Dr. Ing Ernst Nagelstein visited a conference in Switzerland on November 2nd, 1944, where he disclosed to an OSS agent present at the Ayer was refining thorium to metal. He added there was no known industrial use for thorium. He also added that Otto Hahn was working on an A-bomb using either uranium or thorium. This thorium project is associated with Project Tor. Thorium was mined in Silesia near the Bells location. Even larger stocks were available in France. Indeed, when the Allies landed in Normandy in 1944, Germany urgently shipped tons of French thorium by rail eastwards, deep into Germany. Why ship it so urgently, and what made thorium so important? On the 1st of November 1943, Tor moved its new home, a complex built beneath the Gandau Air Base. Tor operated in partnership with private joint ventures by Fürstenau und Co. and GmbH, AEG, Siemens and Bosch. Goodness me, I worked for Siemens and Philips once upon a time. Tor also seems to have involved a powerful Tesla coil or Van de Graaff generator built near Frankfurt am Main. Radiation from high voltage discharges were reported to have stopped engines of bomber aircraft flying overhead. This prompted a special Allied investigation called Project 1217 to investigate whether radiation discharges were a new form of weapon. Professor Walter Gerlach, who headed Tor for Heeres es Waffenmacht, I can't say. What's that actually pronounced, Meki?
It's the Heereswaffenamt.
There you go. Was a dedicated scientist. In 1943, Gerlach received a Nobel Prize for his work on spin polarization. Oh, really? Gerlach received a Nobel Prize for his work on spin polarization of atoms. Goodness. This itself was peculiar because his published work on the subject was in the 1920s and early 30s. What prompted the awarding of recognition in 1943? As an administrator in emergency measures to progress the German A-bomb project, Gerlach was also charged with procuring fissile uranium from January 1944. He was appointed in charge of the entire uranium project by
Heereswaffenamt.
There you go, yes. Replacing Dr. Abram Asso. Documents captured by the ALSOS at Strasbourg, often referred to as the Goldschmidt papers, were classified after the war today reveal drawings of a tall standing device looking like a Van de Graaff generator or perhaps a Tesla coil. At the very top, inside its spherical head, was a spinning device. In the margin, there are notes describing 5 million volts. Nazi research papers captured Strasbourg concerning wartime nuclear projects were classified and archived in the USA. One report has a diagram of a tall cylinder device said in the plan to generate the same 5 million electron volts, or 5 MeV. This device resembled a giant Van de Graaff generator and had no obvious purpose for a conventional nuclear reactor. Wow, I'll let you take it from here.
Just for everybody, Heereswaffenamt just means Department for Weapons for the Army, or Army's Weapons Department. That's really all that is. At the Kaiser Wilhelm Institute for Biophysics in 1940, biologist Boris Rajewski raised concerns about increased experimentation with artificial radiation and called for a project to research the effects of radiation. Sensible. A 3 million volt device was built for Rajewski research, whose existence remains obscure. Die Glocke. When Gerlach took over from Essau in January 1944, like we just learned, he shunned KWI's extravagant and wasteful research projects. He focused exclusively on development of nuclear weapons. At a meeting with Menzel and Schumann in October 1944, they passed a motion not to turn over the still unfinished 3 million volt machine to Rajewski because other previous high voltage neutron generators had been destroyed by Allied bombing. The new machine was vital for the production of neutrons in physics, and in the physics of explosives. No information is available to identify what these early neutron generators were or where the location was. After July 1944, the SS took over all nuclear projects from Heereswaffenamt. Oversight of Thor was administered thereafter by Führungsstab Kammler as one of his key responsibilities. Increasingly, as the war neared its end, Kammler assumed direct control of several projects, including production and testing of jet aircraft. Farrell, Joseph P. Farrell, that is, in his book defines Kammler's role as the production end. So if you haven't read Joseph P. Farrell's books, I highly recommend it. The Bell was clearly part of a weapons project administered in part by the SS Armaments Office. That's what Heereswaffenamt means, SS Armaments Office. Forschung und Entwicklungen, Patente, which means research, development, section, patents. FEP, headed by Admiral Rhein. The Armaments Office was overall headed by SS Brigadeführer Heinrich Gärtner. The Bell project was led by SS Obergruppenführer Emil Matzauf. SS Lieutenant General Dr. Hans Kammler is often associated with the Bell project. However, Kammler's command appears connected more with armaments production, whilst Matzauf's command was focused on research and development. It is possible, however, given his responsibility for nuclear weapons, that he was connected with the weaponization of material produced by the Bell. Almost exactly a year after it arrived at Breslau, as Soviet forces fought across Poland, the Bell was shifted a short distance south into foothills of the Ull Mountains inside a complex of tunnels beneath Fürstenstein Castle. That's Project Riese again. The complex had been built by Organization Tod under the supervision of Xavier Dorsch. These tunnels included a 2-kilometer-long subterranean rail connection with the main railway line through Lubiechov in the valley below. The tunnel was connected with the castle above by an elevator in a 50-meter tall shaft. Laboratories for developing electrical discharge systems for the Bell were at Neumarkt and Leubus, disguised in the facility of Schlesische Werkstätten für Fürstenau, with corporate involvement by AEG and Siemens. Manufacture of the complex contra-rotating centrifugal drum mechanism was performed by BMAG, located at Dessau, home of the sprawling Junkers aircraft factory complex. In this context, BMAG was also awarded a contract for industrial-scale production of Dr. Erich Bagge's isotope sluice centrifuges. A sizable underground facility existed at Schloss Fürstenstein in Lower Silesia. Nearby and to the east, the main Nazi Bell facility itself was located. And that's how we come full circle. And don't go away. Come back next week. But right now, I think Gerber is having a show. So dial in if you like. And that's where we are.
That's the end of show 318. We'll see you next week. Take care, everyone.